Are you a woman who is new to dating women? Or are you a queer woman who is re entering the world of dating after a long hiatus? Join Lavender Dating on a 2-day online workshop, January 25th and February 1st, 1 to 2:30 p.m. Central Time on Zoom, where you'll become better prepared to jump into the dating scene. Learn how to navigate dating apps, get clarity on your values, wants, and needs in relationship, learn how to start and end connections, and much, much more. Don't put yourself out there unprepared. Tickets are available on Eventbrite or at lavenderdating.com. That's www.lavenderdating.com. Hey, queer friends and allies. Welcome to Season 6 of Coming Out and Beyond, LGBTQIA plus stories. Here's your host, Anne-Marie Zanzel.
Hi, this is Anne-Marie Zanzel.
And this is Barbara Rowlandson.
And welcome back to another episode of Coming Out and Beyond. And last week, Barb and I were talking about dating readiness. And we talked all about her list, which is about, let me see if I can do it.
Okay.
It is about wants, needs, and non-negotiables. And so we really dove into that. So if you haven't listened to that episode, go back and listen to it now. It might be more helpful for this episode. But this episode, we're going to talk about generally about whether you are ready to date or not. And so what are some of the first things that people should consider, Barb?
Well, so many people just jump into the dating pool without giving it really very much thought. It's like, okay, if I just download this app and go on it, everything will just sort itself out and it'll be fine. But really, are there any other areas of our lives that we do this? Like we go into something which is actually kind of a big deal with like almost no preparation. Sometimes I think it's kind of akin to like the method of teaching somebody to swim by throwing them off the end of the dock.
Yeah.
Like sometimes they'll be fine and they'll stay afloat, or maybe they'll even be a good swimmer. And a lot of times, maybe not so much.
Right.
So let's prepare ourselves before we even decide to step out into the dating world. And one thing, like go back and listen to last week's advice about creating your lists of things that are nice to have, things that they need to have in a potential partner, and things that are non-negotiables for you.
And also remember that this is appropriate for the online dating world as well, real life dating world. These are some of the whether you're going online or you're going to try to date in real life, all these suggestions are something for you to think about.
Mm-hmm. My first piece of advice, or asking you to consider, is: are you over the end of your last relationship? And look, I get it. We're all later in lifers here. None of us have come through life unscathed. We've all got stuff in our closets that are like, that we have to deal
But
with.
not us.
Oh, yeah. That part of us isn't in the closet, but we've all got stuff that we
Right.
have to deal with. Nobody's nerfect. We're all growing and evolving and changing people, and we should extend grace to ourselves and to others too. However, really ask yourself, have I done the work to become okay with myself after the end of my last relationship? If you're still carrying a torch for somebody else, if you are still hanging on to a lot of lingering resentments, some anger, sadness, emotions that you're finding that you're ruminating over and are you finding them hard to control, it's best that you do a little bit of work on this stuff before you put yourself out there. Because it doesn't go away. Those feelings don't go away by dating someone else. You may be able to suppress difficult feelings over the end of your last relationship for a time. Distraction works for a time. But until we actually do the work and are ready to give our whole selves unreservedly in relationship to someone else, then it's probably a good idea to hit pause on the dating button. What do you think
I have
about
a question.
that? Okay.
A lot of our late in life people are
Mhm.
really grieving the end of their marriages.
Mhm.
And it's as we all know that the grief in the beginning starts to be it's really intense, and to think about dating is like feels outlandish.
Mhm.
Um but then things start to get better.
Right.
And so I don't think you're saying like you can't have any feelings about your last relationship. I think it's more like when you say about holding a torch, I think that is a
Mhm.
really good way to explain it. Like
Yes.
if you're still longing to be with your ex-girlfriend or your ex-husband, if
Yes.
you still haven't figured out how life is on your own without them in your daily life,
Mhm.
um, those are the things you're talking about.
Absolutely. This is what I mean, and I realize that, there are lessons from all of our previous relationships that will always remain pertinent and on our minds and likely inform our future relationships, because in every relationship that we have, we learn something about ourselves, what we want, what we don't want. Most of the women that we work with have come to this place of acceptance that their marriage is over long
Mhm.
before the marriage is actually over, right?
Over, yeah. Yeah,
Right. So
absolutely.
it's really, that is what I mean when I talk about that, is that you don't have any lingering, you're not carrying a torch, you don't have any lingering feelings for the person who, you were last with. That's
Mhm.
that's really important. Do that to yourself, for yourself, as a favor to you, but also to the person who you may end up being in a future relationship with, because they deserve a fair shot and a full chance at a loving reciprocal relationship. And if you're not in it, then like 100%.
Well, and also too, so do you. And so
Yeah,
if you're still carrying the torch from any for any ex, no matter what their gender is,
exactly.
um, it makes starting a new relationship hard.
Hmm.
And it's not fair to anybody. It's
Hmm.
not fair to the person you're dating because you're not fully present for them, and it's also not fair to you as well.
Hmm. Hmm. Exactly.
Hmm.
Second piece of advice is, okay, we keep moving along here.
Absolutely.
I A question I might have for you is, do you feel good about yourself?
Hmm. Say more about that.
I think that, in order to have a healthy relationship, the healthy relationship starts with the relationship with yourself. And if
Mhm.
you're not feeling good about yourself, if you're not kind to yourself, if you have negative thoughts and feelings about yourself, then that's what you're bringing into a relationship. It's not good for you, and it's not good for a potential partner.
Mhm.
Now, again, none of us are perfect, and we all have stuff we're working on. So long as we are working on it,
Mhm.
I think that's fine for me personally.
Mhm.
But if you are having a lot of negative self view, if you're being very unkind to yourself, if you're being very ungenerous to yourself, if you have some deconstruction and unpacking to do for certain things about either, like, your experiences, maybe your body, then do some work on that before
Mhm.
you decide to offer yourself to somebody else.
Right. And then the next thing is about time and energy, right? Do
Absolutely.
you have the time right now to
Hmm.
be in a relationship with somebody?
Hmm.
And that's where the wants, needs, and all those things come into, because you can say, I really want a casual relationship. And do
Exactly.
you have the emotional energy? I very remember, so I got into a relationship early into my when I just left my husband. I, in
Hmm.
fact, said to my wife, "Why don't you come now, wife? Why don't you come back in a year?" Because I really knew that I didn't have the emotional energy to balance a girlfriend
Hmm.
and like the end of a 27-year
Hmm.
marriage.
Hmm.
Um, she said no, and I said, I probably compromised some of my values in that point. It ended up
Hmm.
working out,
Hmm.
but I knew I wasn't ready to be in a relationship with somebody. I knew. I mean, it ended up working out in the end, but we went through a lot of pain over that. We
Oh,
went through.
I'm sure it takes some work to get through something like that. Let me tell you, I back during the pandemic, I dated a lovely woman, just an absolutely lovely human being, and I had no business dating her. Partly
Mhm,
because I was in the middle of, so I was working, plus I was writing a book, and then I got a puppy. And I just felt like so totally overextended. And
mhm,
I gave her very little space. And I think I ended up hurting the feelings of somebody who was actually quite lovely and didn't deserve that.
mhm,
And understand that if you are going to pursue a relationship, this is something that takes time and effort. And
mhm,
if it's something that you're looking for, a relationship that lasts, a partnership, give it the attention that it deserves. And if you don't have space for it right now, that's okay. Maybe consider casual dating
mhm.
and see.
So I have a question. We've had clients that don't have kids, and then all of a sudden they're dating somebody that does have kids, and it's a young child. It's somebody that it's not a kid that's like out on their own at 19 plus, but it's a 10 or 11-year old. And so what she finds is that a lot of times there's a lot of compromising that's going on because
Sure.
her girlfriend just literally doesn't have the time, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and that's hard. And so really
Yes.
thinking about those things, like whether it's for you or
Mm-hmm.
the person that you're dating, when you're looking at them as a potential person to date seriously, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
we're also
Mm-hmm.
talking about you can date somebody non-seriously too, like,
Oh,
no
sure.
expectations. You're just, this person is like, you think of them as a companion, someone to have fun with, some maybe have sex with, maybe even have great sex with, but they may not be the person you're going to be with for the rest of your life for
Mm-hmm.
some very complicated reasons.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No doubt, dating while trying to parent young kids and splitting time with an ex-spouse. I mean, that is an incredibly complicated. It can be an incredibly complicated situation. So, and your kids are only little ones, right? If your kids are
Right.
young, uh, you might feel yourself being very torn. However, there is a flip side, and that is if you are sharing time with an ex-spouse, and kids are going between back and forth in between, a lot of women find themselves all of a sudden have way more personal time to be able to explore things that are like important to them, whether it be hobbies, whether it be dating, because all of a sudden, they have every other weekend free, and that was never the case before.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so many women carry so much of the load of childcare within marriages that,
Hmm.
after that split, they're like, I'm free for a week,
Well, that's the unexpected benefit of divorce. Even though a lot of times people are really terrified of that,
Mhm.
actually you get used to things.
Oh,
And
and you get
so
used to that quick.
yeah, and a lot of women are very like, as long as your former spouse is a big is a, a responsible adult who, the children are safe with. We're not talking about people who've got
Mhm.
problematic ex-spouses. But if you know that person is, you're safe with them, your child, go have fun. Go have
Exactly.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little bit of a reclamation of who we are, and a little
Hmm.
more space for us to explore who we are and what we want. And speaking of that, I think it's important to have a really good idea of what it is that you want to get out of your dating experience.
Hmm.
Are you looking for a long-term partner, or are you
Right.
just looking for somebody to have occasional fun
Fun
with?
one. Yeah.
And that's okay.
And guess what? So many, we hear this all the time. I'm looking for my forever person. And people have left a marriage that they've been with, they've been married 20 something years.
Mhm.
First of all, I ask, like, why? Like, why
Yeah.
do you want to find don't you want to try to date in the queer world for a while,
Mm-hmm.
that it was something, again, I'm somebody who met my partner very early on. I did not have that experience. It's one of the reasons we brought Barb on to Amory Zanzel Coaching, because she has that experience. But I know I had to really think about that when I first was with my wife. Like, I'm going to miss opportunities if, I'm not going to have the experience, not opportunities, because you don't know if it's an opportunity or not. I
Sure.
am not going to have the experience of dating other people. And so if I hadn't met her so early on, I probably would have dated much more in the
Mm-hmm.
beginning, just because I wanted that experience. And honestly, too, Barb, I was also somebody that I wanted to be alone for a year or two, because I
Mm-hmm.
had been partnered since I was like 19 years old, first with
Yeah.
my first fiance, then with my ex-husband. I was like ready to take a break.
Sure, and
Yeah.
some are, and others may not. The idea of diving straight into another long-term relationship might feel comfortable for you. It might feel familiar for you, but I'm a big believer in taking some time for yourself.
Hmm.
'Cause I do strongly feel like if we've been in a long-term relationship, a long-term marriage, and diving straight into another relationship, it doesn't give us a whole lot of space to reflect on, first of all, who we are
Hmm.
out of the context of all these other relationships,
Hmm.
and what we want and need. So
Hmm.
even if it's just for a few months, I really encourage women, take your time, 3 months, 6 months, just take a little bit of time to do some work to figure out what it is that you would like. And if it
Hmm.
still is, yes, I'm definitely looking for my person, I'm looking for the one, then by all means go out and do that. But there's nothing wrong with just that little bit of space just for yourself. Consider it self-care.
Well, and also too, I want to talk about compulsory heterosexuality for a minute, because comp
Sure.
het, we date to marry.
Hmm.
We date to marry. We date to find a partner. We date to bring somebody home.
That's right.
Guess what? Even if you're in a comp het relationship right now, you don't have to date for those reasons. You can date to have fun. You can
Hmm.
date to meet bunch of different people. You can
Hmm.
date to have bunch of different experiences. You do not have to date to find a partner. That is not, if that doesn't feel good to you right now, that is perfectly okay. I do think you need to be upfront with people about that.
For sure.
And also too, sometimes we have those ideas and we meet somebody and we think, nope, not gonna, and then all of a sudden everything, and it's okay to change your mind too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
And sometimes we start dating kind of casually and it turns into something more.
that's what I mean. Yeah,
That's great. That's
yeah,
great. Good stuff. But it's okay if it doesn't either. And
right.
sometimes a lot of times, in the lesbian community, we date and we end up just making friends.
Yeah, because
So that's
sometimes
pretty
you will
cool.
go on a date with somebody and you're like,
Mhm.
oh, I don't think this is dating material.
Exactly.
But I could be friends with her. She's really nice. So let me
Exactly.
ask you, what would be somebody, when somebody says, "Oh, I don't think this is dating material"? Like, can you? That's always like such a question in the lesbian community, right? What's the
Mhm.
difference between, like, how do I know if this was a date? How do I know if this person's just a friend? How can I tell whether this person's a romantic interest? Like, what would you say if somebody came to you and said, "I went on this date with this person, and I'm not sure if they're dating material"? What are some questions people can ask themselves?
Well, not sure if they're dating material. So, okay. I mean, they are for somebody, but maybe not for you.
Correct.
So be clear about what it is that you want. And
Attraction.
yeah, attraction's definitely a thing. And if you are attracted to this person, and you mentioned this just a second ago of like, I'm not sure if this was a date. We encounter this sometimes when we're dating. It's like, we've just gone out, we've done this thing, we've had a lot of fun, and I'm not sure if this was a date. Okay, well, listen, there's some universal signs of attraction that it doesn't matter if you're cis, straight, gay, doesn't matter. There are some universal signs. Think of things like, do they maintain eye contact with you?
Mhm.
Have you found excuses to just sort of subtly get closer or maybe even touch? Are you mirroring each other's body language and facial gestures? Have you already lined up a time to see each other again?
Mhm.
When you talk, does it feel like, you know, no time has passed at all, but you've been talking for 4 hours?
Mhm.
Like, there's some pretty, like, if you really boil it down, you can see that,
When
there
there's
are
attraction.
some, yeah, there's some attraction signals of attraction that are pretty indisputable. And quite frankly, trust yourself on this. If you feel like it's like they might be attracted to you, they probably are.
Mhm.
They
Mhm.
probably are.
Mhm.
And what is the harm of, asking?
Mhm. Mhm.
What's the worst thing that can happen?
Mhm.
They say no.
And then you have to be okay with them saying no and
Yes.
not taking it personally.
Mhm.
So that leads to something else we talked about in, are you okay? Are you all right? Like, say, for example, if someone ghosts you or
Mhm.
someone says, I really like you, but I'm not attracted to you that way.
Yeah.
Can you handle it?
This is, again, why it's really important to step into dating with a strong sense of self, having done some of the work, taken some time to really reflect on who you are, what you need, to be okay with yourself. Um, so that you can handle a world of rejection, because at some point you probably will be rejected and you will probably have to reject others and be okay with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is that the other side of that is can feel really difficult too,
Mm-hmm.
to let somebody down who may be
Mm-hmm.
interested in you. It's like,
All right. So I guess then one of the readiness would be like, are you able to tell somebody no
mhm, mhm.
and not feel like it's your responsibility to caretake them after you've told them no?
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. Remember, the number one person you're caretaking is
you.
you, right? So if you find that you struggle with communicating those things, like to be able to say, yeah, I don't think we're really meant to be, or I'd really just rather be friends, or somebody ghosts you, or somebody rejects you in a different
Or
way.
somebody keeps on contacting you after you've asked
Yeah.
them not to.
Yeah. So, it can feel tough, and I'm not saying, even for those of us who have the strongest sense of self, like, being rejected sucks, right? Like, it doesn't feel great.
Mhm.
But for those of us who do have a strong sense of self, we bounce back a whole lot quicker
Yeah.
because
And
we
I
don't
think
internalize it.
and I also think it's about learning how to set boundaries. And actually, sometimes learning how to set boundaries with strangers is the best gift you can give yourself, because
Totally.
as you become proficient with that, then you're able to set boundaries with people that are on more in your inner circles,
Mhm.
because you realize people don't die when you set a boundary.
Absolutely, absolutely, and they will be okay, and so will
Well,
you.
and also too, we have to be okay with people being disappointed in us, and
Mhm.
our actions.
Mhm.
Because saying, you know what, I think you're a great person, but you're not dating material to me. You don't have to say that, but you can,
You
you
can
know,
say it in a nice way.
yeah, you can say it in a nice way. I just don't think we're compatible, or anything like, something like that.
Sure.
But be able to be okay when you tell somebody no
Mhm.
is really such a great gift for yourself. And practicing with people that you don't know very well can also be such a learning experience. So then when you go into other areas of your life, you're more comfortable saying no to folks.
That's a really good point. That's a really
Yeah.
good point.
Yeah.
Another point I wanted to raise is rigid thinking and being open to new kinds of experiences. And, you know, we have to take a little bit of a risk to
Mhm.
be able to have some discovery, to find somebody, right? Like, she's not going to just ring the doorbell
She's
and
not going to fall through the ceiling and land on your lap.
right, exactly. And so I think a lot of times I see this all the time. where there's some really rigid thinking about what the experience is like being out there dating, especially on dating apps. And yes, it can be, can I say shit show? It
Hmm.
can be a shit show sometimes when you're out there on the dating apps, especially if you're not prepared. And there are all kinds of people who are out there, and not all of them are a great match for you. Let's just be diplomatic and say it that
Well,
way.
and not all
But
people that are out there are ethical. And
exactly,
you just, it is, you just have to remember this is a stranger you're meeting in a bar,
exactly,
except you're meeting them a different way.
exactly.
So, yeah.
So
And
you
so
have to put
you have to,
yourself out there.
well, and also you have to vet them. You have to be
Yeah.
like, you have to be safe. You have to think about like, different things that like, should I tell this person that? It's like, you can't, like, I have a chat feature on my website. You should see the tomes people write me
Hmm.
on those things, like 10 paragraphs that are 80 lines long each. And I'm like, I mean, I present as a very reasonable, safe person, but
Sure.
honestly, I don't think I could share all that stuff on a chatbot with somebody I haven't worked with before. Like,
Hmm.
you have to be thoughtful about, like, okay, should I share this with this person?
You do have to be thoughtful and also like and be prepared. Absolutely. But stepping out of your comfort zone is part of dating.
Correct.
So, she's not, if you just sit on your couch and watch Netflix,
Well,
she's
and
never,
also
you're gonna
being
never
really
gonna meet her.
rigid. You know what? It's very interesting is that a lot of late in life lesbians want to meet a woman that's butch or masculine of center,
Hmm.
and that's what they find attractive,
Hmm.
and that's wonderful. But being rigid, like I'm only going to date women that are masculine of center, you can't do that because
Hmm.
first of all, you really, 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 really narrow. So that is like more of a need. It's not a non-negotiable. You would like to date somebody who
Hmm.
is masculine and center, but be open to other types of women because you never know, who will float your boat. And you might be surprised that this woman that's more femme than masculine you just fall for like that. And you all of a sudden are the masculine of center person in the relationship.
Right,
Yeah.
right. You don't know until you try, that's for sure. And unless
Mhm,
it's something that's like really a non-negotiable, like consider how much latitude you're willing to give.
mhm, mhm,
And be open to new experiences.
mhm.
And any sort of pre-existing ideas that you have about what dating is like or what women are like to date, or you might be carrying some jaded thoughts and feelings forward
Yes,
from previous
especially women
experiences.
who've been out for a long time
Yeah,
and
and
are now back in the dating pool after they have
mhm.
been married to other women or something like that. A lot of times they do carry it. Like you've talked to Tonda. She's pretty jaded about the dating world.
Well,
Tonda's my wife.
connection is facilitated through vulnerability. And
Hmm.
I understand that so many, especially if you're you've been out for a long, long
Oh,
time, you've
yeah, we're
been
gonna
off.
say it. An
Yeah,
old bike
exactly.
has been out forever.
So you've probably been burned quite a bit. And I get it. It can feel very difficult to step back into the fire again once you've been burned. However, I mean, okay, I'm Canadian, so I have to give a hockey reference here. Wayne Gretzky said, "You miss 100% of the shots that you
You
don't
don't
take."
take. Yeah, yeah.
So, dating does require a little bit of psychological flexibility to be able to try new things, and also vulnerability and the willingness to, if you open up and you are vulnerable and you let yourself feel things for people, yes, you might get hurt again and you'll be okay. Or you might find love and
Well,
connection.
and that's what I think that's what happens with dating apps, Barb. It's
Hmm.
not about the dating app. It's not about dating. It's about making ourselves vulnerable.
Hmm.
That is what is the root thing with dating. Dating is putting yourself out there and being vulnerable to hurt, to
Yeah.
pain, to criticism, to all kinds of things.
Hmm.
But as we know, vulnerability is the seat of where change happens. It is also the
Absolutely.
seat where creativity happens. So we have to be willing to be vulnerable to date.
Yeah.
And so if you accept that as if we accept that as okay, I'm just going to be vulnerable about this, then it may make dating a little bit easier. It's still going to be scary, but it's just a function of of being in the world and wanting a relationship. We
Hmm.
have to make ourselves vulnerable, and it's also for those of us who haven't had practice in a long time, it just feels hard to start all over again, and we understand that.
Hmm. For sure. And this is where, I love acceptance and commitment therapy. I
Hmm.
think like the philosophy behind that is really strong. And if we could step into dating feeling really good about ourselves,
Hmm.
having a very strong sense of self, then we will not adhere to or identify with experiences or feelings that are negative. Those are things that are just going to float by. We are always us, and we are always people of worth at our core. And so we might feel sad or disappointed or heartbroken even at times, but it doesn't mean that we are broken,
Correct.
right? Thoughts and feelings are just travelers, right? They pass through.
Yes.
So
And the average feeling lasts 90 seconds.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
So
having that strong
how
sense of self, being willing to be open and vulnerable, understanding that not everybody is meant for us, and that we're going to have a whole spectrum of experiences when we put ourselves out there, and being willing to accept those experiences. I think it's a really important way to step into a scenario where, you want to be able to create a new relationship that is
about.
meaningful.
Hmm.
Right.
So if people need more help with this, Barb, what do you suggest?
Well, listen, I'm going to say come to the workshop.
Yes.
And we get it. Dating, especially if you have not done it in many, many years, or if this is the first time that you're dating women, if you're a later in lifer, or if you are a woman who loves women and you have been in a long-term relationship and now that relationship is over, and you haven't online dated before, or it's been 10, 20 years, the world of dating is a lot different. So don't just be thrown off the end of the dock into the lake and expect to learn how to swim. Get a little guidance. We
And a
have
little
the two.
life preserver.
Yeah, we your human life preserver, and the 2-day workshop. It's January 25th and February 1st at 1 p.m. Central Time on Zoom, and it's a bit of a primer on how to enter or re-enter the dating world if you're seeking relationship with women, and
And
we're going
if
to
you
cover a lot.
And if you can't come to both, we're going to tape them for you. So if you can
Yeah.
come to one and not the other, that's fine. You'll still get the opportunity to watch the other. And I just want to tell you, Barbara Rowlandson is one of the funnest people I know. She
Oh,
knows how to make people laugh. She knows how to make them feel special. And if I had an opportunity to go to a dating workshop with her, I would run and sign up. And I'm not just saying this because she works with me, but just because honestly, Barb is a hoot. And she's a lot of fun.
awesome.
And we're going to have a lot of fun in this workshop. So
For
it's not
sure.
all going to be scary, scary, scary. We are going to have a lot of fun. And so
Mhm.
we hope you join us. You can find all the information on my website, annemariezanzel.com. The place to sign up is right at the top. It says Women Love and Women Workshop. And we hope you come. So I think we've covered everything we want to cover about online dating.
I
The
mean,
last,
we could do this
we'll be back.
podcast,
We'll
this
be back
topic
with this. Yeah.
every
Yeah.
day pretty much, but for the time being, this is a really good starter. Go back and listen to last week's episode if you haven't
Yes.
done that already. And then if this has piqued your curiosity, if you're ready to start thinking about putting yourself out there,
Well, and I also want to offer something else.
okay.
A lot of times people in our communities, like they really stress about divorce. I don't know if I'm going to have enough money. And what is our
Mhm.
first piece of advice? Go see a professional. Go
Yep,
talk to a lawyer that is certified in your state and your country and can tell you about the ins and outs
sure.
because knowledge is power. So whether you're thinking about dating right now, or you're thinking about maybe dating in the future, in the next 6 months, next year, have this information, because you know what? You will have the information, and all of a sudden it's not going to be as scary as it was. Even if you say, oh, I'll take this in 6 months, well, you get 6 months to worry about it and think it's going to be scary. Take it now, understand what you need to do and what you don't need to do. And so that you don't have, you can say to yourself, when I'm ready to date, I have the tools behind me.
Oh, absolutely. And any time and effort, money spent on our, education, self-improvement, anything to create more self-awareness, this is time and money well spent.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very accessible workshop as well. It's not going to break the bank. It's about the same as buying a book.
Mm-hmm.
So, join us, and you're going to get so much value, and you're going to have a good time, and
You
you'll
got to have
probably
fun.
meet some interesting people as well.
Yeah,
So,
you never know who's going to be there,
yeah.
because. All right, y'all. Have a wonderful week, and we will see you next Friday. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. You've been listening to Coming Out and Beyond, LGBTQIA plus stories with Anne-Marie Zanzel. New episodes of the Coming Out and Beyond podcast drop every other Friday. You can tune in at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and at annemariezanzel.com. Be sure to hit subscribe when tuning in so you never miss an episode. And for more resources, articles, videos, and a free downloadable guide for coming out later in life, visit annemariezanzel.com.